health is not priceless until you lose it. And only 7% of Americans actually have all the biomarkers for health. It's not what you do, it's who does it for you. That transformed my business.
Evan Mestman is the founder and chief gratitude officer of Pro Attitudes, a health, wellness, and mindset coaching business focused on transforming core beliefs and optimizing mindset for positive change. Drawing on a diverse background that bridges clinical nutrition, business leadership, and coaching, Evan helps individuals and organizations reprogram their thinking to achieve lasting growth and better outcomes. Evan, welcome.
Hey, grateful for you asking me on here today.
Evan, you've spent decades weaving together clinical nutrition, corporate sales, if my research is correct, and mindset coaching. If you had to describe the through line or core driver that links all of your different work, what would it be?
Wow, that's a great question. To me, I believe that it's the one word. If I'm just distilled it into one word, it's intention. I think awareness, there are so many people in the world that are not aware, but that podcasting and books and social media help increase awareness. But 85% of the world is not self-aware. So self-awareness is great. It's the first step, but without intention, it keeps you in your comfort zone. So to me, I like to put the attention on awareness and then teach people how intention is what creates the neuroplasticity that neurobiology is all about now, which 30 years ago when I was doing this, it was woo-woo science, but I did believe that people could change. And so that's a long answer to a short question.
That's very interesting. It's almost like the person who goes to the psychiatrist and says, yeah, I know I've done this and this and this badly. And it's almost like that awareness is great. And that's a first step, but it's not sufficient. It's not a sufficient condition for change. It's a necessary, but not sufficient condition.
With this spicy meatloaf up here, I call it the spicy meatloaf that's sitting inside this black box, it's a prediction machine. And every day you wake up, you're predicting or you're filling in all the little pixels of what happened yesterday and the day before. We blindly imitate what we do every day. And those are the habits that we have that create the fabric of our life and determine our agency. What do we accomplish in life? So many people just wake up and do the same thing over and over again. Self-awareness creates a stop. It's a pattern interrupt. Intention takes the needle out of the groove and changes the song that you're playing, which usually is going to sound terrible in the beginning because when you change those new neural pathways, you don't do it well. It takes time because your brain wants to go back to what it did before. How do you do that? We need to find a deeper meaning, which is really my what I do with my clients is help them determine what that deeper meaning and what is that why that they do what they do. Why is their habits not aligned with what they truly want? And what they're thinking is not aligned with what they truly want. And they don't understand there's an incongruence between their behavior and what they're trying to achieve. And they're stuck in this prison and they're repeating it over and over again. And they go into burnout. And that's where I come in. I love working with business owners and leaders who've climbed the ladder to success, but what they've done is they've left their health on the bottom rung because they thought they had to. This is just they're following society and what they've learned. But if they keep doing that, health is not priceless until you lose it. Got 1,000 problems to deal with until your health becomes the priority. And then everything else falls away, but it might be too late. So what I do is take them back up to the top rung before they fall off the ladder altogether. And I do it 3 different ways. I help people lose weight with their minds, not just their mouths. And that's the weight on their shoulder, not just around their middle. I help them be intentional with their health because without intention, You're stuck in your comfort zone. We want to get into the learning zone, which then gets you, I call it the suck zone. But that suck zone means you're having difficult conversations, you're learning new skills, you're doing things that are just totally uncomfortable. But after you push out of the comfort zone, past the fear, and you get into that growth zone, the next zone, that next after the learning zone is the growth zone, right? The growth zone is where the magic happens. And that's what I work with. That's what I do with my clients. I'm the navigator, I'm not the driver. So it all depends. People need to know that they have the ability to change. That's what the beauty of neuroplasticity is, and using neurobiology as a foundation to help people change is what I'm all about. That's why my business is Pro Attitudes, and why I developed the Better Bite Buddy, which is down here. That's the tool that I've created. It hasn't launched. It's in beta testing right now, so that's why you haven't found anything on it. But it's coming out in the first week in December is when I plan on doing some major testing. I'm real excited about this. This is going to help people change on the micro level, because it's the little changes you make every day that determine what you're going to do the rest of the day. Give you an
Mm.
example. Like when you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing you do?
P.
Very first thing.
Uh, I don't know. Open your eyes, I guess.
Exact. And then do you get out of bed, or do you get this? Do you wake up because of the alarm? Do you hit the snooze button? Those are all habits.
Yeah.
Do you get up and make the bed? Do you go into the bathroom, take care of business, and then brush your teeth? And then think about how ingrained some of those things are. You probably even sleep on the same side of the bed, get out of the same side of the bed every
Mm.
morning, put the left foot down or the right foot down, right? And then you might stretch, you might not, you might think certain thoughts. All of those things are predicted. And those things are what I love to work with, because I like to think about what you do and being what triggers you to do it. There's a space between those things, stimulus and response. But in every day when we're prediction machines, it becomes a habit, it's automatic, there is no space. And then the third thing that I work on, which I didn't mention, the third thing is the inner critic. There are 10 of them, and those inner critics keep you locked in those habits for a reason, because they keep you safe. And what I do is I help people understand their inner critic, take the power away from them so we can open up that space. And Viktor Frankl said it best, that space is the freedom to choose. That's what really gives us the agency to do what we truly are meant to do versus what we think we should be doing. I keep my inner critic up on the shelf here just to remind me. He used to be 6 feet tall. I got him down to 8 inches, 8.5 inches. And I keep him here, remind me, he's my friend. I don't want to get rid of him. I want to tame him. And when you think about everybody's inner critic, nobody thinks about it that way. They want to quiet that inner critic. What
Mm.
about waking up and talking with your inner coach? That's what Pro Attitudes is all about, and the Better Bite Buddy. Nutrition is fun. I love nutrition. That's why I say I'm a leadership coach disguised as a nutritionist. But nutrition science is extremely complex. So I spend a lot of time learning about nutrition in school. Got my master's in clinical nutrition. I'm a personal trainer. I wanted to learn wellness. I did my master's thesis in cardiac rehab so I could understand chronic disease. I became a diabetes educator so I can learn metabolism and what's actually going on with metabolic syndrome. And then I wanted to learn critical care. Like, how can I help people who are critically ill? Because there's pieces of the puzzle in there if we can help people survive a critical illness. So I became a nutrition support dietitian, all because I was heavy as a kid. And all my family members were dying from heart disease, diabetes, cancer, obesity. And I looked in the mirror and said, that's not going to happen to me. But I'm the one that has to do something about it. And I made some ordinary changes over summer when I was a kid, teenager, because I was just so sick of being bullied for being heavy, making a muscle and nothing happening, and not being comfortable. I
Mm.
was so uncomfortable that the risk of change was greater than staying the same. And I went through transformation. And that transformation, I've been reverse engineering ever since. Because the change wasn't that hard, but I'm like, well, how did that happen? And it has to do with a combination of psychology, behavior, nutrition, and understanding neuroplasticity. How do we help people change for good? And that's really what my the quest has been my whole life. And what I loved when I went into corporate America, I saw it doesn't just have to do with weight and health. It has to do with any decision we make. So if you don't take better care of yourself, how are you going to take better care of your company? You can't separate that. So I believe that those private victories, when I teach people to align their vision, their values, their principles with what they truly want, what their behaviors are, wow, amazing things start to happen, not just with them, but it translates into increased agency, increased productivity, increased engagement. Amazing things start to happen. That's what transformation is all about.
Yeah, that's fascinating, Evan. There's so many things that came to my mind as you were talking about that. There's some intersection there of Eastern spirituality, the idea of the witness, or in modern psychology, what you would call observing ego, the ability to detach and kind of create a gap in between the stimulus and the response. You also wax Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. And you also reminded me of one of my favorite books. It's ostensibly a business book, but it's also just a life book. It's called The Power of Full Engagement. And the concept is about automaticity, right? Is like how much of what we do is automatic, and how you can do a pattern interrupt for those automatic behaviors and actions that don't actually serve your end desired result. So very interesting. And the other thing that occurred to me is how noisy the wellness space is, and how like anybody can go into it for better and for worse. I mean, I've heard some ludicrous things, but I've also heard a lot of intelligent things. Looking back, I guess the aha moment for you was the summer transformation, and it convinced you that uh, to change yourself, right? But then what was the aha moment that convinced you that there's an audience for what you teach, the blend of health, mindset, business?
It's a great question too. There you go. I love it. I'll tell you that I didn't know what I was going to do, but I went to school pre-med because I knew I wanted to help people. And my father was a dentist, my sister was a chiropractor, my brother was a biomedical engineer. And I'm like, I don't know what I want to do. I tried psychology. I'm like, no, that's great. I looked at all the different modalities and I said, nope. And then, what ended up happening? My last semester in college, I took a course in nutrition and it put it all together. I said, wow, I've got psychology, I've got the biochemistry that I love, I've got pathophysiology, I've got just behavior. There was just so many pieces of the puzzle. And then I said, what am I going to do? And I found a clinical nutrition master's program to go to. And when I realized when I got out of school, that was 7-year commitment of undergrad, grad, because you've got a lot of work to do. You're doing a lot of biochemistry, and there's an awful lot to becoming a master's in clinical nutrition. And I didn't go for my PhD, but what I learned was I only have a few pieces of the puzzle. Another thing that really motivated me when I got out, I said, how are there people out there? And this was before the smartphone, before you could get on and get information instantly. But people were writing books and people were starting websites at the time. It was in the 90s. And like, how do they get on TV and talk about just eliminate these foods, try this diet, take these supplements? I'm like, what do they know that I don't know? And so I was always on a quest. You always learn. It's the school of hard knocks. You learn on your own. And so, but I put together my own program based on the success that I was having, because I didn't like what the status quo was doing. When you saw, oh, let's eliminate all fat, that was the big thing in the 90s, was go on low fat diets.
Right.
And then I saw people were getting more hypoglycemia, which I suffered from. And also people then heart disease actually increased, not decreased. And people were getting obese. And I'm like, well, what's going on here? Why are the establishment telling us to do this? The food pyramid. I said, nobody eats from a pyramid. They eat from a plate. So I created Around the Plate, which is part of my book here. This is a book I wrote over 30 years ago, and I rewrote it called The Habits of Healthy Eating and published it. Um, it's my philosophy, which is counter to what was out there in the general public. So part of it was the information that I heard was flawed. And I'm like, I don't understand why it is that there's misinformation out there, disinformation even. And that's what motivated me to say, but look at the impact I'm having with my clients. And I was having great success. I actually even got recruited by a wellness company that was delivering its product via the internet. And it was a startup. It was well ahead of its time. I was like, oh, wow, I can now take my message to not just hundreds of people, but tens of thousands. And we went public on 9/11, 2001 at Cantor Fitzgerald. So I went from
Holy.
hero to zero. And that's how I pivoted into corporate America, where I thought I could have more of an impact because I just couldn't go back to doing it myself. I like the idea of working with a company and having a team, which I had 20 consultants that were developing this incredible wellness program. One of them was Elon Musk's mom. She was amazing. She's a dietitian and an amazing woman, but hearing about Elon back then and where he is now, just fascinating. But what I learned from that was I had the pieces of the puzzle. I just wasn't ready. And
Mm.
20 years later, I went through sales and management leadership, big companies like Roche, KCI, which is then purchased by 3M, and Convatec. I learned that the therapeutic approach that I was using as a nutritionist was the sales approach. But with sales, it can be manipulative. I wasn't manipulative because I was really truly trying to help people. So I was very successful in that. But I also was still helping people. That really was truly amazing to me, is just to see the corporate world and understand the organism that the corporate world was, and how by default, unfortunately, it created a culture that sucked the joy out of everything that you do. And I don't think that was the intention, but unfortunately, because everything's externally motivated instead of internally motivated, I always work with my teams on how can they take better care of themselves so they can take better care of the team and the better care of the company. And then I realized when I came back to doing what I love to do after COVID, like, well, I can go and do this with teams. I can do this with business leaders. And that's really why it's a long answer to a short question.
Very interesting. And it sounds like you also straddle a line between offering kind of B2C solutions. If my research is, correct me if any of my research is flawed here. I don't want to misspeak, but basically it sounds like you service both B2C, so kind of end users, and also corporate customers. And how do you tailor your approach to one versus the other? Like, what's the difference? Is there a difference, or is it just a difference of scale?
Well, it's definitely a difference of scale, but I think what happens is when I'm doing B2B, if I'm working with companies, um, there's an opportunity there where I'll go in, I'll do a full day training like I did for 3M on global. It was a global leadership team that flew in, and I did a training on how to take charge of change so change doesn't take charge of you. Um, and then there's that opportunity to work within those teams. It's a different approach. Your marketing is different. Your messaging is different. But my true love is I love working with teams, but I truly love working with the leaders, and that's the B2C. But still, it's one on one with my training when I do the coaching, because I love seeing the transformation. So that's a different approach, and the way that I kind of bridge both is I'm on many platforms. So I write daily on LinkedIn so that I can speak to both of my markets. I actually have three archetypes. I have one is the executive in burnout. The second is the yo-yo dieter, especially the one who's on taking Ozempic or the
Mm.
GLP-1 inhibitors. And now the hunger's back. Like they don't want to stay on medication forever. I have a great story about that. And then thirdly, it's the health and longevity crowd that wants to live forever, but it's not about your lifespan. It's about your health span. You don't want to spend the last 10, 20 years of your life managing a chronic illness. And
Okay.
that's how I'm working it now. The Better Bite Buddy is going to have B2C component, but I also want the B2B where I could go into companies. The thing that I've learned with companies, and remember, I have a long history of this wellness program. When I was going to sell this program, it was for companies that were self-insured. That's how long ago it was. That self-insured doesn't exist anymore. And they wanted to reduce their costs. They were motivated to say, well, we want to reduce sick time. We want to reduce um, the lack of engagement, the lack of productivity that happens when somebody doesn't show up for work and they're not taking better care of themselves, which is great. And I wish we had stayed with that model because I think we'd be in such a better place than we are now. But we don't have that model and we're getting sicker, right? And we're getting fatter and we're having more and more challenges. So the model needs to change. So I still I'm an optimist that I can still go in and cultivate this optimism within companies to encourage this sea of change. Kind of like I don't gonna get political, but MAGA, make America healthy again. Matt, I forgot what. Make America healthy again. Right. The concept behind that, regardless of the politics, is beautiful. That to me is like it. What I'm seeing is there are not that's a B2B and a B2C movement because companies need to encourage their employees. Hey, let's incentivize you to take better care of yourself. It's selfish, but it's a great thing, right? That's not a negative thing, but why are companies not doing it? Or they're doing it and they come to me and go, guess what, Evan? They're not really using the wellness
Mm.
program. They're not tapping in the millions of dollars that we're spending on these programs because they're canned and they're not understanding that you have to be engaged in the front line. There has to be a bridge to getting to that person to understand it's not about going on a diet. It's not about taking supplements. It's not about exercising. It's about becoming present. It's not about doing more. It's just about being. And that's self awareness and intention. That's, yes, it might be Eastern philosophy, but, you know, the power of now. It's such a powerful book. Um, but it's so important for people to realize there's nothing but right now, this moment. And when we get lost in the past or we fear the future, the spicy meatloaf goes nuts and just starts ruminating. And that costs everybody, the person, it costs the company, and it costs you more joy in your life because you're worrying or regretting. How do you stay present? That's, I think, probably the most important thing I learned in the last 30 years. And all of my, even though my program is focused on nutrition, exercise, wellness, and really helping people take better care of themselves, it's about making those decisions by staying present. It all starts there.
Totally agree with that. Just a day is just composed of a lot of little decisions. Should I eat that chocolate chip ice cream? Should I you know
But
get a
just
little
this
exercise?
once I will. Just this once I will. That
Yeah.
is the mindset that people have. And I love reframes. So I don't know, the Navy SEALs talk about how do you get through
Hell week.
that first week.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's about just getting through what's right in front of them.
Yeah.
And it's all psychological. It's not like the guys that are built like a brick house and are the stars of the football team. They're the ones that end up leaving
Correct.
right in the beginning. It's all about mindset. So to me, why not tap into that? With everybody needs to learn how to tap into that, and that is just this once. I won't. Oh, that's a different. Well, yeah. Well, you can do it tomorrow, but just this once I won't. That's exactly what they say. I want to give up, but I'm not going to give up. I can give up tomorrow. And tomorrow's another day, and you just do the same thing. And it becomes a habit of being able to delay the gratification. Because how good does it feel when you accomplish something you think you couldn't? Yeah, I just came back from Peru. We climbed up to Machu Picchu, the short Inca trails, a 7 hour trek of sweat and not blood, but sweat and tears. It was tough, but it was something we prepared for, but we didn't know we could. But what a great feeling when we got to that peak, when we were able to get through all the different challenges. But it was one step at a time. That's what I kept telling myself. That's what my wife kept telling herself.
Mm.
And that was powerful. Um, Even in Cusco, when I was suffering from altitude sickness because I stupidly stopped the medication, thinking I'm done with the Inca Trail, so I should be fine. And I'm sitting there at an incredible meal, and I'm suffering from the altitude sickness. And I look at the plate, I taste it. The food tastes amazing. And my body says, if you eat that, something terrible is going to happen. And I said, this is what people are doing to lose weight. This is what it feels like to be on Ozempic or GLP-1 inhibitors. And I said, it's taking all the joy out of what food is supposed to represent. It shouldn't be that way with exercise. It shouldn't be that way with eating. We have to find ways to get back to living in the present and not just look for the easy ways out. There's a place for GLP-1s, but you still need to work on doing the work. And that's what I'm here for, is to make it as easy as possible and be the navigator or the Sherpa for people going up that mountain.
Right. Up the proverbial Machu Picchu.
Yes.
Um, Tell us about your offers. So how do you help people? What do you offer them in terms of services or products or trainings? Uh,
One of the best things for people to do to learn more about me, my new website hasn't launched yet, but you can still go to proattitudes.com/follow. And when you do that, what'll happen is it it's my link tree. So it has, if you want to learn who your inner critic is, which is I think one of the most important first steps in learning who your loudest voice is, but also becoming self-aware, that's free. And there's a link there. I have a lifestyle challenge assessment, so you can look at 7 key areas of your life, and it will let me know exactly where you're having the biggest challenges without you having. All you got to do is answer the questions. Um, I also have the Better Bite Buddy, where people can have all of these tools built in, and it will work with you like a companion. And I'm testing it now. That's betterbitebuddy.com. You can go to my LinkedIn. You can go to I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of those channels. And I have LinkedIn newsletter that I write every month too, and the blogging that I do. And
okay, understood.
at LinkedIn, every Wednesday to 10:30 Eastern, I do a LinkedIn event, and I work with understanding the taming the inner critic, but also how to become shatterproof. It's about resilience. It's about changing the thought patterns, reframing. And I go through a half an hour with another wonderful professional. Her name is Jody Lemieux. She works on speaking truth. I work on the inner dialogue that we have. And we've been doing that weekly for over a year. So these are all free services people can take advantage of. And if they want to work with me, first session is always complimentary because it's got to make sure it's a good fit.
For both, right? For sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, okay, interesting. How do you keep recurring revenue, or how do you, let's say, with things like coaching, sometimes it's more sessions based, or you might sell packs of sessions, 10, or you might do group coaching, or there might be a way to sort of expand yourself beyond yourself using various technologies. How do you keep recurring revenue flowing into your business in this kind of industry?
And that question is so important when you have a business and you're even thinking about an exit strategy, recurring streams of revenue is something that will really increase the valuation of your business. The Better Bite Buddy is a recurring revenue. The base, it's free right now. As far as the first 50 conversations are free, but right now I'm testing it, but it will be a base of $10 a month and then $20 a month for the premium, but there'll be packages that I'll add that will add more value. I when I work with my clients, I work with them in with a contract of a commitment of 6 months. Most of my clients stay with me for years, so that's where I get my recurring revenue. They pay monthly. They can stop at any time. I ask for the commitment, but I never want somebody staying with me if they feel it's not a good fit or they're not benefiting. But I have one client. I started this business 5 years ago. She's still with me from 5 years ago. Another client's 4 years. Another one started 2, 3 years ago. So that's my recurring revenue, is provide as much value as you possibly can. Always be learning, always be sharing with your clients. And if I'm not doing that, then I can't expect my clients to grow and change and learn.
Of course, makes sense. And then how do you actually go out and acquire these clients? I'm sure you get referrals,
Mm-hmm.
and you also have contacts in the corporate world, and you're on LinkedIn, which is that's the B2B space. What are your sort of main acquisition channels, if you're at liberty to talk about that? And
Sure.
how do you take control of the level of growth that you want, or the type of clients that you want to work with, versus just sitting back and letting referrals dictate that?
I those are the most important questions. I came to this business knowing, after working in corporate America, that I wanted to scale. So I built a system. It's the SOPs are so important. I use Asana as my project management. I use Go High Level and segment my archetypes so that I create my campaigns, my email campaigns. I have platforms where I'm teaching, whether it's the Great Discovery or it's Go High Level,
And
and
Learn
I do
Dash,
live
I believe.
LinkedIn. All of these are my go to market strategy, and it's always agile because you never know what's going to work. And then measuring, I'm always measuring, I'm testing, measuring, because you don't know what's going to work. And then having a team. I have some really great, as a matter of fact, that's my next meeting is my operations team that I have a meeting with. They're waiting for me right now. I
Yeah,
love
tell
it.
me about your team. I'd love to hear how you run the business too.
Well, I wanted a team, um, and I failed miserably in the beginning trying to recruit people, because I brought people in, but I wasn't ready. I didn't have the SOPs, I didn't have the systems and processes, and so I built that. And then I brought a VA in, and she's through a company where she wasn't just somebody who does tasks. I wanted somebody who thinks outside the business, outside the box, and outside my business. And she really helps I did all of this myself, but she takes my LinkedIn through Sales Navigator and using Dripify to get me the leads that I want, and also to find me I also have her working on different segments, centers of influence, referral introduction. All of those happen. Finding referral partners, all of those are built into what she does. And then I also have another development team that helps me with technology, and that makes a huge difference because you can't do it yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And it's actually amazing that you found somebody to help you with outbound who you can depend on. That's a tough one. It's mostly agencies I've found. And so you're paying a very big premium, which may be justified. The ROI might be there, but if you can manage it in house and they do a good job, that's a huge win, I think. You mentioned tech, and for full transparency, yeah, the way that I found you, Evan, is through a list that I exported of sites that use LearnDash. My team and I are LearnDash certified experts.
I
So this
don't
is,
use LearnDash anymore,
but
but
you don't use it anymore. And I found that out.
no, I'm
And
sorry about that. Yes, I mean, I
no, it's
loved
okay.
LearnDash. Um, but part of it was that the problem with LearnDash or any learning management system is you can put your product up there, but the marketing is the hardest part. How do you get people there? If you have a great business that's driving people in, great. But I'm a solopreneur. That's why I'm working with Go High Level,
That's
but
right.
that also does the same thing. The Great Discovery uses an affiliate level marketplace, which brings me affiliates from around the world that can drive people to my trainings, which makes a huge difference. And it's focused. It's a fourth generation of Six Sigma, which is an amazing tool that we used to use in business, and my clients did too when I was in corporate America. And it's to me it wants to be the number one learning platform in the world. So that's if you're already part of learn dash as I think that learning more about this, we'll have to have a one-off on this, because that's the next
Yeah.
generation for you.
Yeah. And it's interesting speaking with you, Evan, and I've done a number of these podcasts now. I've rebranded. This is kind of resurrected after a 9-year hiatus and rebranded as Member Fix Radio. And it's been super eye-opening to speak to people in this area. First of all, a lot of people move off of WordPress, period, for a number of reasons. There's sort of costs and there's a lot of headaches and so forth. But I completely agree with you. The marketing is really the the tech is important, but it's secondary to actually, like, you got to go sell something and it's got to be valuable. So, okay,
Yes.
you know, you got to go acquire the customer. You got to start a conversation. You got to give value. You've got to find their challenges, present some kind of solution that they're willing to pay for. And then how you deliver it. Okay, there's a million ways to do that. And you kind of partially answered my next question, which was, what types of challenges specifically around tech have you faced, and how have you solved them?
Being agile is the hardest thing. I started with ChatGPT well, first I started with, the CRM. Like, I knew I wanted a CRM because it came from big corporate America and I used it for my teams. I wanted to be able to measure. If you can't measure, you can't improve. But finding the right CRM was tough. And, Go High Level is an all in one. It's not just a CRM. So
Mm-hmm.
having something all in one, because I had worked with another company that was served me, but I didn't. I started with HubSpot, didn't like it, but used it. And then when I got to a certain level, it said, "Oh, if you want not to the free version, you have to spend $400 a month." I'm like, "Okay, I'm learning how to use your program, but not that well. If I was generating that kind of revenue, great, but I'm not." So I found an alternative. It didn't serve me. When Go High Level happened, that's when, technology is important. I would encourage anybody who's looking at technology, if it's not serving you, switch. Don't wait. I waited 3 years, 3+ years to switch. I kept giving it a chance. I was very patient. And then that's how I learned about LearnDash. And I kept buying all this different technology, which every piece can break. So I wanted an all in one, but I still work with layers of technology, because I'm not using ChatGPT. I'm using Pickaxe, but now I'm using Bolt, and I'm using um, what's it called? Purcell. There's all these different types of technology, along with letting other people who are experts do this. That's another thing. 10x is easier than 2x. I love Dan Sullivan.
100%.
Um, and my business coach was trained by him for 12 years. So um, it's important to have a coach if you're a coach, so you can develop yourself. And it's important to, like I said, be agile, expand your horizons, try new things, fail, learn, pivot. Fail, learn, pivot, but it's never failure. What it is just information. And that's, to me, the most important thing. You can't just have, I mean, days are done where you have one platform and you stay with it for 40 years. This is what people did in business and they stayed in one company for 40 years. So that would be my advice for any business owner and solopreneur out there. I love mentoring other business solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, because networking is truly important, but also I don't want people suffering the way I did, and finding the right tech. And when you do
Mm-hmm.
find the right tech, it unleashes superpowers, which is where I am right now. I'm loving it.
High level is amazing, and it's been amazing to see their growth and what they've managed to accomplish in their platform. And yeah, it probably just saves you a lot of headaches and money too on all the plugin subscriptions. I mean, it's not just LearnDash, it's also all the add-ons, and then you need good hosting if you have any number of members in there, and then you probably need some kind of tech team to assist you. It can get very expensive. And for certain types of businesses, it makes sense because they need kind of an extreme level of flexibility that you're not going to
Mm-hmm.
get with a hosted platform. But sounds like you found what works for you, and that's the key.
Exactly. And it's not one size fits all. It's find what works for you and then learn how to use it to its full capacity. Most people use 5% of what softwares they have. And I didn't believe it, but I mean, I'm using probably 80% of the capacity of what Go High Level offers. If you only use 5%, why even bother? Like, spend the time. The low hanging fruit is your development. Learn how to get better every day, 1% better every day on what you're doing so that you can serve your your audience better. That's the challenge. Like, it's what I love about like a learning management system, super, but how are you going to serve them if they don't know who you are? They can't get to it. That's the biggest
Mm.
challenge. That's why, I love being on podcasts. So to advertise what I do. I love writing. I love networking. I'm very big on networking. I'm a big part of H7. I love that's a wonderful network that's global, mostly in the United States, that focuses on connecting with people, serving them, and then asking. So it's more about relationships than it being transactional. And I run their optimized health network, which is every Monday at noon Eastern time, and where we help you take better care of your health so you can take better care of your company. So you can see there's I'm building on all of these things to help promote my business, but also to help more people.
Right. And the two aren't mutually exclusive, right? They actually require each other.
Yeah.
Um, and that's, just as a small aside, Evan, that's kind of a tragedy to my mind about this, um, I don't know, the current zeitgeist where there's, it's been going on for a long time, I suppose, this sort of um, enmity towards business and businessmen and the profit motive. It's like, no, that's how the world works. And, you help people and then they give you money, and that's normal and that's good, I think. Um,
It's not greed, it's profit. The problem is people look at profit or capitalism as wrong, and I look at it as you're not looking at it through the right lens. It's value. What's the currency of value? Money. So when I make money, it should be because I'm providing more value. The more value I provide, the more money I have to help more people. When you're greedy, that model doesn't work. And that's why I started my career learning all about the 7 habits of highly effective people. Stephen Covey is somebody that I really admired, and it's built into my program. It's got to be a win-win. It's
yeah.
got to be based on all of those habits, right? It's synergy is what it's about in the corporate world. The problem is they're externally motivated because if they're public, they've got quarterly reports. Everything's focused on, they say profits, but it's growth. They say growth, growth, growth at what cost? And I
Yeah.
saw what impact that has on corporations. What if corporations, because I have a friend in Germany, um, he worked for Mercedes for many years. He was in, and I've been friends with him for almost as long as I've been married. And they have a much longer outlook on work. They have 30, 40, 50-year plans. Even China has a 100-year plan. We look at quarters. And I think it's
Mm.
so short sighted. I think corporations need to really change that model. Um, and they need to focus on need to focus on taking better care of their employees,
Yeah.
and not about money. Money is the lowest motivator for anything that anybody does. And when it becomes the motivator, watch out, because your culture is going to be toxic. The Leading with Gratitude was a great book that I read, and they've done research with 70,000 employees. And out of 23 outliers, they looked at what motivates employees the most. Number one was not money. Actually, it was 23 on the list. The number one thing is feeling appreciated, gratitude. How That's why I'm the chief gratitude officer. How many employees out there are feeling appreciated? Why is engagement at an all-time low at 70% or higher? Why are people disengaged when it comes to their health? But so nearly three-quarters of the Americans are either overweight or obese. 50% of Americans have diabetes or prediabetes, and the half that have diabetes don't even know it. And only 7% of Americans actually have all the biomarkers for health. 7%. You can't have a healthcare system when we're the Titanic going under. It just makes no sense. So there has to be a sea of change. And that's part of what I'm doing. And we didn't talk about it, but my method is called the B3 way. Become, be strong, be grateful. The become is a transformation that everybody needs to go through. It's not what you should be, it's emptying yourself out with awareness so that you can fill your cup with the destiny of what you're intended to what's meant for you, what your purpose is. And then the be strong is the growth mindset. How do you become resilient? How do you become shatterproof so that no matter what happens, you look at it as a gift or an opportunity, not as a setback? And then gratitude keeps you grounded in the precious present. And that'll leave you with that.
No, I felt something when you were saying that. That's really powerful. Um, well, I guess to round things out, and you were speaking of change. Can you think of a change or experiment that you've run in the business that's had some kind of disproportional result, and not necessarily in terms of revenue, although ostensibly the topic of this podcast is recurring revenue business models, but could be in terms of freeing up your time, could be in terms of the results that you're getting for clients. Were there any big, what is it called, small hinges that open big doors that you can think of?
I can think of so many. We could spend a whole podcast on
Can
this.
you think of
I
one?
will say the most important thing was what I talked about. I think everyone should read 10x is easier than 2x. It's allowing yourself to look at your business, look at your habits, look at your revenue generating behavior, and look at your behaviors and non revenue generating behaviors and go, what can I delegate? I'm worth how much money per hour if I want to generate X amount of money. Let's say I want to generate, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Well, then, or millions of dollars a year, what am I worth per hour? And if well suited for that, I could hire somebody for much less money, delegate. It's not what you do, it's who does it for you.
Who
That
not how?
transformed my business. That's one thing. The other thing is to look into the future and create big, hairy, audacious goals, reverse engineer it backwards. That really created glass ceilings for me when I first started. And I looked at, instead of the first year, I looked at 5 year. And I went, wow, if I wanted to do that, and I reverse engineered it back, I went, okay, I've got to change my trajectory. I've got to change my habits, the things that I do daily, weekly, monthly. But it changed everything. So those are a couple of things.
Sounds like all mindset stuff.
Yes, it is. Isn't it always? It's because you don't want to blindly do what you did yesterday. Don't imitate yesterday. Find a deeper meaning, find a way to improve it, be present. And that's how you get really tapping into your superpowers and how you see amazing productivity. And you get more joy out of life too, more mojo.
Well, I think with that, we can wrap up. Thanks so much, Evan, for coming on.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for asking me. I really enjoyed this, Vic.
Okay, let me